Hi everyone, I'm Jen Lucas, Managing Editor of the Knitting Circle, and I want to welcome you to today's live Facebook event. I'm super excited to be here with our guest. I have with me Michelle Lee Bernstein, and today we're going to do something a little bit different than what we've done in past videos. Today, Michelle is going to teach us all about how to do steeking in our knitting. And it's something that I actually have never done before, and so I'm very excited to try it. That's what I love about doing these Facebook Lives. I feel like there's always something for all of us to learn, and so I think you're really going to enjoy this one. If you haven't done so already, there's a link to our pattern here, which is the boxed heart coasters, and Michelle has written up a beautiful pattern for you, so you can go ahead and click the link in the chat wherever you're watching this so you can download the pattern and follow along with us. And then Michelle is going to show us all the steps that we need to know in order to make it, and we're going to learn how to do the steeking and everything, and I'm so excited about it. And then before we get started, don't forget we do have the chat wherever you're watching from, so you can go ahead and say hello, let us know where you're watching from, and if you have any questions while we're working through the pattern, be sure to go ahead and drop it in the chat, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can. So now that we got that housekeeping out of the way, I want to welcome Michelle Lee Bernstein to our Facebook Live. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here in person.
I know.
I
know. We've been doing these from our home for like over a year now, so it's nice that you and I can be in person, and I'm very excited that you're showing me something in knitting that I have not done yet. And so why don't you, before we get started on this, why don't you tell everybody a little bit how you got started with knitting and how you transitioned it into a career?
I learned to knit when I was 14. My favorite aunt taught me to knit. That's my Aunt Rose, and I loved it. I loved the stitches. My first pattern, or my first project, was a sweater, knitting around with cables up the front, which, you know, was pretty fun.
For a first project?
That was a first project,
impressive.
But it's just, you know, stockinette stitching around, and every once in a while there's a little cable crossing. That was fun. About 12 years ago, I was already starting to make little patterns, but I didn't really have a way to put them out there, maybe as a little freebie or something. But then Ravelry came along, and I had a way to be able to sell my patterns, and so that's when I started designing in earnest. And I also started teaching at a local yarn shop, which was very fun. And designing and teaching, they go so nicely together.
Absolutely.
So I love accessories because 3 favorite words: gauge, not critical. Thank you very much. I know you like your shawls too.
Yes, I do. Don't have to worry so much about the gauge, yep.
So I design a lot of accessories. And then the other thing I like, when I'm teaching, I like to use worsted weight yarn because it's a big stitch. You can see what you're doing. It's non-threatening. Right now I'm knitting socks and it's worsted weight because it doesn't take very long.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's awesome. And so why don't you tell everybody that's watching exactly what steeking is, because that is kind of an unusual word. People might not know what we're even talking about. So what is steeking exactly?
Well, the word steek, you can either be talking about the place where you're going to cut or about the actual cutting itself. But steeking is a way to make flat pieces of knitting. You're actually going to knit in the round, but then you're going to cut it to make it flat. So here's an example of what we're doing today. This was knit in the round. And why would I want to knit in the round in order to make something flat? Well, if you're doing stranded color work, it's really nice to be able to see the pattern that you're knitting the entire time you're knitting, as opposed to purling back across the back, because you can see that it may be not quite as easy to tell what you're doing.
Yeah.
So we knit the whole thing from the front, and we make a special place that we're going to cut, and you can see that vertical stripe there. And we're going to reinforce it before we cut because we don't want things to just go wherever they want to. And then we cut, and then we finish our edges.
All right, awesome.
And so that's what you're going to do. And I love having a new victim. So
Yes.
you are my new victim.
Yes, I have done my homework here, and I've already put in the crochet on the one side, and we're going to do the other side, and you're going to walk us through everything that we need to know in order to make this. So why don't we go ahead and get started?
Okay, so let me start by explaining what we're doing. You'll have your pattern when you download it, and we need 2 balls of worsted or DK weight yarn, and it's only 50 grams each. You want to pick a yarn that is not superwash. because you want a nice sticky yarn that wants to stick to itself so that your stitches don't run away when you cut things. And a non-superwash yarn is pretty much your best bet for that. You are going to need a little bit of another yarn, and I used fingering for crocheting my steeks. And you'll need a crochet hook.
Don't get scared of the crochet hook as a knitter.
I'm not a crocheter, but I can do this.
Yes, you can do that. You can do it. It's not that hard.
You'll need a 16-inch circular needle to do your actual knitting. And let me just look at my list. 4 stitch markers. You're going to need some sharp scissors.
Yes.
If you've seen any of my things on Instagram or Facebook or even Twitter about this little live that we're doing, you've seen scissors. And I just like putting them in the pictures so that it looks a little scary, but it's really not scary at all. And I love teaching this as just a little accessory thing because it's pretty non-threatening to cut up a coaster as opposed to the sweater that you've been knitting for 6 months.
Yes, that is true. And that's like why part of the reason I'm so excited to be here is I actually have started a colorwork sweater. It was originally a pullover sweater, and I'm heavily modifying it, and I want it to be a cardigan. And so as I'm knitting this part to do the steek, but I've never actually done it before. So I'm glad that Michelle is here so she can show me on this before I finish that sweater and then try to steek the cardigan. Okay, so why don't you just go through
we're just gonna do it.
Great.
So again, gauge is not critical. There is a gauge given, but it doesn't really matter. You don't want it to be super loosey-goosey because, again, you want it to kind of hold together. I am doing this pattern to make 2 coasters, and you might wonder why. Yes, it is a little more knitting, but making it 2 coasters means it fits on a 16-inch needle, so you don't have to fuss with double points or magic loop or 2 circulars or DPNs or whatever. So that's why we have 2. And the other reason why is it gives you 2 chances to cut your knitting, and by the time you do the second one, you're going to be very comfortable with it.
Okay, great, awesome.
Okay, let's talk about how to read a chart. I'm going to
let's move
put the chart here where you can see it.
Perfect.
This is the chart that we are going to be knitting from, and if you've never knit from a chart before, charts are really great for color knitting because you just count the number of boxes that you need to use to do any particular thing. On this chart, you can tell that it was meant to be knit in the round. And the reason you know that is all of the numbers for the rounds go up one side. If this were a chart for flat knitting, your 1 would be here, your 2 would be here, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you would go across and then you would work backwards for the backside round. But we're knitting in the round, so that's why we're here. And then on the bottom, I've got numbers for some of the stitches. These 3 S's are my steek stitches, and these 3 stitches, or S's, are my other steek stitches. Our steek is going to be 6 inches wide, or not 6 inches, I'm sorry, that would be very large.
That would be a very large steek.
Yes, 6 stitches wide, and half of them are on one side and half on the other, and the reason I did that is so that the beginning and end of round is not somewhere where it's going to show as a bump on the edge of your coaster.
Gotcha.
This is going to be turned back and nobody will know that that's where it was. Also on reading the chart, I would work my 3 steek stitches, and then you'll notice the numbers 1 through 10 here, and they're in a red repeat box, pattern repeat. So I'm going to knit stitches 1 through 10, and then 11 through 20, and then I'm going to finish with stitches 21 through 25, knit my 3 steek stitches, and then I go back to the beginning and I do that whole thing over again. 3 steek stitches plus 20 stitches here, 5 more stitches here, and then it ends the round with 3 more steek stitches.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree. Definitely when you're doing the color work, really taking the time to practice working from a chart is very important. I know that for some people reading charts is difficult, but I feel like especially with color work, trying to read a written pattern written out like knit 2 in main color, knit 3 in contrasting color, it becomes very, very, very wordy very fast. So just taking a little bit of time to learn how to read the charts. We do have some videos on the Knitting Circle about reading charts. I think actually you did some of the videos on the Knitting Circle about reading charts. So if it's something where just in this short amount of time that we have, if you're still not sure about reading charts, be sure to just visit our website, theknittingcircle.com, and you can find some videos that Michelle did so you can get a little more practice at it. But yes, especially for color work like this, I think it's really good to work from the chart for sure.
Okay. Let me see. I want to talk a little bit about the pattern. When we start knitting from the pattern, it starts with knitting flat. And the only reason why is because I wanted to have, let me see, I don't know if you can see this. Yes, you can see this because here's this. Okay, because I wanted the edges of my coaster to be in garter stitch.
Yes.
And if it was in the round, that would mean you'd have to purl the next round and then knit around and purl around. Well, we like garter stitch because it's all knitting, right?
Yes, yes, we do.
We're just going to knit back and forth until this border is done, and then we'll join in the round, and it tells you where to join in the round, so it's not scary. And then all of the rest of this, where we have the color work, is all stockinette stitch. Yes. So there's no purling. And then when we get to the end, we are going to go back to knitting back and forth in order to get that last little bit.
Awesome.
I would like to demonstrate for you just a little bit of stranded color work knitting in case you haven't done it before.
Okay, that's really great, because yes, I know for a lot of people this might be a totally new technique to them. Maybe they haven't done color work before, and I know that you do knit a lot of things that involve using multiple colors at the same time. So,
okay, so when you're doing stranded color work, it's really nice if you set one color on one side of you and the other color on the other side of you. And then, let's see, I just finished 5 of this color. So according to my chart, and you don't really need to see it right now, but it was 5 stitches of one color, 5 stitches of the other color, just alternating back and forth. So I need to change my color to the other color. So I'm going to drop my old color right there and pick up the new color. And then I just knit my 5 stitches. Doesn't matter what hand you wear it in, hold it in, you know.
Yep.
And then I'm done with that color. I'm going to stick my needle into the next stitch, drop that yarn, pick this one up, and knit my next 5 stitches. So you don't have to twist the yarns around each other. Some people think that, oh, I'm doing stranded color work, I have 2 colors I need to twist so I won't get a hole. That doesn't happen in stranded color work. If you were knitting in Tarja, where you're doing like picture knitting, then you would want to do that, but you don't have to here. And then I'm going to change colors again, and I like to put my needle into the next stitch before I change color, and the reason why is that if I don't, if I just change my color and I start knitting, it can get squinchy, and then you're going to have puckered fabric. I don't like that. So I'm getting set. I spread my stitches out a little bit to make it so that the new color is going to have a little bit of room there to breathe.
Yeah, it's important when you're doing that color work that you don't let your stitches get too squished up on the needle, right? Because otherwise you do get that the puckering from the stitches being squished up, and then that doesn't look it doesn't look great.
So across the back, we want to have just really nice long floats.
Yes, great.
Okay.
And so I do have a question. I'm going to interrupt you. So with this particular pattern, we're only doing at most 5 stitches in one color and then switching. So like you said, there's no twisting. What about if you were doing some other color work pattern where you had, I don't know, 12 stitches and then you had to switch? Do you personally catch the yarn like halfway through or something?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, you would, because otherwise you'd have that big long float.
And you don't want a 12-stitch float. The rule of thumb, I guess that's the term that we use and don't use anymore, is that if it's going to be more than an inch, then you would want to twist your yarns around each other and then keep going.
Okay.
But I always write my patterns, so there's never that.
You don't have to worry about it.
I don't want you to have to do that.
Okay,
you don't
that's
have
great.
to do that.
So Michelle's looking out for you when she's writing her color work patterns.
I have looked out for you.
Okay, great.
Okay, the other way you could do it is if you can knit continental and English, then you could just keep a yarn in each hand. So I've got one in each hand, and here's my 5.
You move your hands up just
sorry.
a little here.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you for
That's
watching out for
perfect.
me.
Yes, I'm watching out for you.
3, 4, 5, and then you would just start knitting with the other color from the other hand. And I am not a great continental knitter, but it works, and there you go. Or, oops, wrong color. Or you can carry 2 colors in the same hand, and if you want to see that, I have a video on my tutorials page, so pdxknitterati.com, tutorials. I have a lot of tutorials about a lot of things, but you can see that there too. So I've got my two colors. I've got my index finger between the two. I'm going to come back into the frame. And then I would turn my wrist a little bit so that I'm going to kind of hook that yarn up over and knit my 5 stitches. And then when it's time to use the other colors, I put my needle in, spread those out, and I just turn my hand the other way and throw the yarn over, kind of the way I always do.
So that's something that just, if you want to try to do that, just
Yes.
it's like anything in knitting, it's just going to take a little bit of practice.
It does take practice.
Yeah.
You could also hold both colors in your left hand. I can't do that. I can't demonstrate it for you because
Yeah,
I'm
no,
so
I agree.
bad at it. So
I also knit with the yarn in my right hand too, and I'm somebody, when I'm knitting the color work, I am just picking up and dropping each color while I have the yarn in my right hand. I actually found for me that's personally the fastest. But yeah, there's so many different ways that you can hold your yarn. They even make these little tools. They're like the rings.
Yes.
Have you seen where you can like run the yarn through the ring and have it on your finger? So there's lots of different things you can try to figure out which way color work works best for you, basically.
yes.
Yeah.
And on this coaster, you have just enough time to practice it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, and it's not a huge investment of time.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome.
All right, so you've knit your entire piece of homework, and Jen has her entire
I
piece
have
of
my
homework.
entire piece of homework right here. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm nervous. I've never cut my knitting before like this.
So let's talk about our steek.
Yes.
Our steek in this particular pattern has 6 stitches across. And I've seen lots of different ways to do steeks. You can have 5 stitches, 6 stitches, 7 stitches. I've seen someone do one with 1 stitch up the middle, just 1 purl stitch up the middle, and that's Icelandic, I think. I like to feel very comfortable knowing that there's a lot of places where things could go wrong and I could still manage to salvage it.
Yeah.
So I need 6 stitches.
You like that little bit of wiggle room that you get by
Yes.
having the 6 stitches in between. Okay, cool.
I need security.
Yes, I agree. I'm with you. Yeah. 1 stitch, that sounds, I mean, maybe we'll do another live sometime where we'll try it.
I'm going to try it at home first because I don't
Yeah, that
wanna
day
do-
is not today.
We're not going to start that way.
Yeah.
That would be terrible. You can use all sorts of different stitch patterns on a steek, and no matter what it says in your pattern, if you're knitting something else, you could still set it up this way. I saw this recently in a book by, I think it's the one by Mary Jane Mucklestone, 150 Scandinavian stitch patterns.
Yeah, that's a great
I think
book.
it was hers. Where it's set up like this. So I've seen it done as a checkerboard, which makes it a little harder when you're crocheting into it to find the right place, because at one point it's this one color is closer to you, and the next stitch the other color, and the next stitch the first color, and that's harder. Or just plain one color stripes. But this I thought was brilliant. So here are my 6 stitches. It starts with this dark one here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the same color inside.
Yeah.
And then there's the light one for 5 and the dark one for 6. So that means it makes it super obvious that you are going to be cutting up between 2 stitches of the same color.
Yeah.
And then also your edge stitches of your steek are going to be the same color. I really like symmetry. So that means when I pick up along there, it's going to look the same on both edges.
All right, awesome.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Different ways to reinforce your steek.
Yes, I was
Just going
going
to talk about
that.
those.
Yes, I would love to talk about that.
So if you're doing a sweater, you could do that reinforcement on a sewing machine. I didn't bring a sewing machine with me. You can also take needle and thread and backstitch your way up the edges of your steek. I really like having yarn in my hands. I am not a needle and thread person.
Yeah, same.
It's tiny and it's tedious and whatever. So I like crocheting because I don't crochet very well, but I still have yarn in my hands and it's kind of fun. Then I ran into an idea. I saw it first on Modern Daily Knitting, and I don't remember who had suggested it. You can needle felt a steek. Needle felting with those barbed needles.
Yeah.
And you just take your knitted piece and put it on top of a block that you use
like the
for
little
needle
foam,
felting.
the little foam
Because you don't
block.
want to steek this all the way through.
Yeah,
to the other.
you'll felt the whole thing together.
Not what you want.
Yeah.
But then you just keep stabbing it until it's felted together, and then you can cut it without worrying about it coming
That's
apart.
really interesting. And you can get all your rage out too while you're...
Yes.
That's what I love about needle felting. You just stab something repeatedly.
I made a cute little white lovebird needle felting, and it had little bloody spots on it. So needle felting's probably not my best.
Yeah. So would you say most of the time when you are doing this kind of steeking, you're doing the crocheted steek? That's
Yes.
like your number one preferred way to do it.
That's my number one preferred way.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, well, let's do it.
So I think we're going to do it. I
Yeah.
am going to pull out my pattern so I know exactly what I told you.
Yes.
And this is on page 4 of your pattern if you're following along, and you'll get there. There's a little diagram. I don't know if it's going to show up very well. There it is. But it's got the numbers of the stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we are going to get our crochet hook and some yarn.
Okay.
I'm using a slightly lighter weight yarn. Actually, it's probably a lot lighter. This is fingering. I used it for a Fair Isle hat. And I'm trying to keep the bulk down under here. And let's get my crochet hook. So we are going to pick up a stitch and we're going to attach, let me start from the beginning because
Yes.
I always like to have all of my numbers together. We're going to cut between stitches 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we, before that, are going to attach 4 and 5 together.
Okay.
One leg from each stitch.
Okay.
And then we'll turn around and do the other side. But I'm going to turn this sideways so the cast on edge is facing the right.
Okay.
And I am going to pick up my yarn between stitches 4 and 5, which would be between 2 colors, and that is the light and dark.
Okay. Oh, this is my cast on edge. Okay.
And I'm just going to poke in there. Let me put my yarn on this side.
Okay.
You know how when you're getting started, the yarn
Yeah,
is just
it's
kind
always
of,
a little awkward right at the
hang on,
beginning.
we're just gonna pull up a loop here. And I didn't tell you that you needed to secure it, and you technically don't, but it might make you feel better if you just make a loop over and pull it through, and then we're ready to go.
Right along the cast on edge.
Yes.
Okay.
Then we're gonna fold our knitting along that edge so you can see that I have the light color facing me, and the dark color is right behind it.
Okay.
And as we crochet our way up to attach one column to the next, you're going to go under one leg of each color stitch.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're like picking up, like in my case, I did mine in purple and pink. So it's like one leg of pink, one leg of purple.
Yes, and it
Okay.
won't be at the very beginning
Right.
because we have this edge where we used
all the same color,
yes.
right.
So,
Okay.
but you can tell where it is because
Yeah, it's pretty easy,
I've got
especially
it
because we
folded.
use that longer yarn.
Yes.
And we're doing single crochets here,
we're going to be
right?
single crochet. So let me get my hands set up. So I've gone under 2 legs of stitches 4 and 5, one leg from each, and I'm going to pull the yarn up to make a loop, and then I'm going to go back and get another loop and pull it through. That's one single crochet stitch.
Gotcha.
I'm going to go under the next 2 legs, and I have to turn this up so I can see where I'm going, but I'll turn it back. And I've got one leg from each column, and pull up a loop, and then get another loop and pull it through. And here we go again. I am now at the point where I have one of each color. Yes. I have to pull this closer to my face to see what I'm doing, but then I'll put it back. So do you see how I've got one of each color here?
Yes, yes.
Pull up a loop, and then get another loop and pull it through.
I feel like this is the hardest I've ever had to think during one of our Facebook Lives. So I have a question for you. So we're doing a single crochet steek here. Is that the standard? Can you do just like slip stitches up your project? Like do like crochet slip stitches?
Yes, you can
Instead
do-
you can do that
Yes.
too? Okay.
And I took a class to review my steeking last, pandemic time, whenever it was.
Yeah.
With Mary Scott Huff. And she does the most beautiful stranded color work, and she steeks everything. She makes up places to put steeks. I am not there yet. But I tried several different things. And so I had this swatch where I had like 6 places where I could cut. And I tried some with single crochet and I tried some with slip stitch, because I tried doing slip stitch because I wanted to make it even less, you know, just less bulk there.
Yeah.
I liked the single crochet better than the slip stitch.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. I just
Yes.
didn't know if you could do, you know, one or the other.
But you know, you have 2 chances to cut on this. So if you wanted, you could slip stitch on the other steek.
Oh,
And that would work fine. That would be,
I might take this out and slip
yeah.
stitch.
Okay, you slip stitch.
I'll slip stitch. And if you, you know, we're kind of going over the crochet part. You know, Michelle showed you how to single crochet. We actually do on the Creative Crochet Corner website, which is one of our other websites. You can find free videos on how to do the slip stitch, how to do single crochet. And so if you need a little brush up on some of the crochet, and you also can re-watch this video afterwards to see exactly what Michelle is doing, you know, up close, to review those crochet stitches. Because I know sometimes as knitters we get kind of scared of the crochet hook, but don't be scared of the crochet hook. I think a crochet hook actually is one of the most important tools a knitter should have in their notions box, because you could pick up drop stitches with it, do stuff like this. It actually, the crochet hook has a lot of places in knitting.
It does.
Actually,
I use mine a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
For picking up a dropped brioche column,
Oh,
the crochet
yes.
hook is your friend.
Yes, that's true. You do a lot of that brioche
I
as well.
do. I love it.
Okay, so I'm going to try doing a slip stitch on this side of mine.
I'm just going to show an example of a slip stitch, and then
Yes,
I'll pull it
please.
out.
Yes,
so
please do.
if I go under my 2 legs, there we are, and I pull up my loop, but I don't go and get another loop. I just finish taking this loop through the first one, right?
Yep.
So that is a slip stitch, and it works fine, and it has a lower profile.
Yes, it is less bulky.
I'll do that one more time, and then I'll take those 2 out, because, you know. So I bring up the loop, and then I take that loop through the first one on my needle. See how it's a little bit shorter already? All right, I'm going to take those 2 out, because I would like this to be consistent. I told you I like symmetry and
Yes.
consistency, and there we are. So it's just going to take me a minute to go ahead and finish this row up.
Okay, great. I'm not seeing any questions about our steeking yet in our chat box, but I just want to remind everybody, if you do have any questions while you are watching us about you know, colorwork knitting or the steeking or anything like that, be sure to go ahead and drop us a comment or a question, and we'd be happy to try to answer it for you.
Or make something up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I wonder what would happen if. That's how a lot of my designing goes. It's trial and error designing. I love it. It's like, you know, what if it was like this?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is really, once you get the basics down with this particular coaster pattern that you're providing, I mean, people really could take a piece of graph paper or something and draw out their own little design and make another coaster, you know, doing some other sort of color work design. Or you were talking about that book earlier. There's tons of different books with different color work motifs in them that you could incorporate into something just as simple as coasters. And you know, we're sort of getting now into that. We are in now that gifts. we are in the gift giving season, and so you know, if you're looking for something really quick and easy to do as a gift, I mean, really, you can have these done pretty quickly.
Yeah, so a cute mug and a coaster and maybe a gift card to your favorite coffee shop.
Yeah.
That's a nice little gift for a teacher.
That's a nice little gift, yes. And, you know, I mean, I'm a pretty fast knitter. I mean, well, because I, you know, knit as my job, so I am a quick knitter. But really, this little bit of knitting, I mean, this for me was one evening while watching TV, you know, so it really doesn't take long. Even if you consider yourself a slow knitter, you really can have this knit up very, very quickly, I think, you know, just a night or two in front of the TV watching, you know, cheesy holiday movies on, on cable. All right, this is awesome.
Are you ahead of me? Is it a race?
Oh, we are.
That's the other thing I always like to say. It's not a race.
Yes.
And however long it takes you is just fine.
Yep.
But I think she's ahead of me.
There's another idea for future Facebook Live, some sort of
World's fastest knitter thing. That would not be me.
Yeah.
I feel like sure, you could learn to knit faster, and hang on, I'm looking to see where I'm supposed to poke my needle, to bring it right up to my face. The whole point about knitting for me is that it's fun and I like it and it's relaxing.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be fast. However long it takes is however long it takes.
Right. I'm the same way too. It's really just enjoying the process. And yeah, even if it took you a week to knit these coasters, you know, who cares? Like you're going to have something really cute at the end of it.
And why not knit something that you get to learn something new with,
yes.
too?
Yeah, you know, I do knit some color work, but I really don't do a lot of it. So even doing this for me was really fun because I don't knit or design a lot of color work patterns, and so it was really fun sort of to go back to it because I hadn't worked on that color work sweater in a while, so it was fun to work on this for sure.
And I see that Jen holds her hook differently than I do, and it doesn't really matter how you hold it either. As long as you get it done, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's got an overhand hold, and I've got kind of a pencil hold, and it's the
both work.
hold that my Aunt Vivian taught me.
Oh, man, all the ants.
Yes.
You crafty ants.
Yes. So I'm at the end, and I'm just going to go under that bind-off edge here.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring up a loop, and I'm going to go make my single crochet stitch, and then I'm going to cut my yarn and just pull that up all the way through.
Okay, great.
So I have one side done.
Great.
And I'm going to show you how to start the other side, but I won't make you watch me do the whole other
Yeah,
side.
we don't have to sit here and do the whole other
We just
one.
want to talk about where the yarn goes and,
Okay, great.
and where you are. So that was between stitches 4 and 5, and on this side it's between stitches 3 and 4.
Okay.
So it's going to be the light on this side, and the dark is part of the middle column. And I'm going to put my needle hook. What do you call this? This is a hook, right?
Hook, yeah, this is a hook.
This is crochet. We're in crochet. So I'm going to put my hook between stitches 3 and 4. And I'm going to turn this. Remember we were working this way before? I'm going to turn it so the bind off edge is facing me so that I can go in this direction. I guess no, don't do it. So in one of my classes, someone did go in the opposite direction, and doing it the way that I'm showing you means that your 2 columns of crochet are going to lean away from each other, and you want them to lean away from each other to show you where your cutting is. You don't want things leaning in over your cut line.
Got you, yeah.
Okay. So you turn it this way, and when you crochet it goes to the left.
Yes.
Now, if you are a left-handed crocheter and you already know that and
Yes.
everything is backwards, do it whatever you have to do, but you want them to lean away from each other.
You want it to lean away. Okay, yeah, this is great. So yeah, I did the single, maybe you want to bring mine in here. So I did my single crochet on this side, and then here I did the slip stitch, and you can see exactly, there is way less.
So here's the single crochet.
I think I prefer the single crochet there. I think having that extra bulk is helpful because I feel like it's very obvious on that single crochet side where I need to cut.
Look how far apart they're leaning from each
Yeah,
other.
I agree.
And then this one, it's pretty flat,
Yeah.
but I think what's giving us most of the bulk on our actual coaster isn't from that single crochet, it's from the 2 layers where you've got the facing folded back.
Yes.
So I'm glad you checked that out for me,
Yeah.
and I quite agree. That's
Yeah,
how I like
I
it.
do like that. We do have a comment from Deb, and she is watching us from the Creative Crochet Corner Facebook page. And she says, I am not a knitter, however, I am enjoying watching and listening. This is very fascinating. And I suppose I guess like with crochet, I'm trying to think, because I do crochet, but I'm not, an expert crocheter. I guess there probably are some places in crochet where you could maybe use a similar technique to this. I mean, the thing about crochet is that you can kind of go in any direction anyway. So, but this would be something, you could probably play around with this in, other projects as well. Okay, all right.
I like crochet for edgings on hats too.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I love, that's the thing. I do love combining the knitting and crochet a lot. Or, there's some people who will do beautiful shawls, like knit a shawl and then do a crocheted edging on the bottom. Ooh, yes. More Facebook Live ideas, I guess, right?
I think Jen is just continuing to talk because she knows what's coming next.
I think so. I'm stalling. Okay, I'm stalling. All right, are we doing this? Are we cutting?
We're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Okay.
And in real life, if you want to stick You could either stick something in between your layers so that you don't cut through 2 layers at the
Yes,
same
yeah,
time.
that's true.
Or you can just hold it up and do your cutting that way. So it doesn't matter which direction you cut from.
Okay. Oh boy.
Let's take a really good look at this. So I've got my 2 crocheted edges and they're leaning away from each other. And do you see there's half of 1 stitch from column 3 and half from 4, and we're going to cut right up the middle of those little V's.
Yeah, so it does, even though it's half a stitch of 3 and half of 4, almost when you're looking at it, it almost does look like just a column of stitches,
Yes.
basically. Yes, okay.
Okay.
All right, let's do it, I guess.
I've got scissors. I want you to document this moment.
Here we go.
I want to see yours too.
Okay.
So
Here we go.
does this look scary? I've got
Yeah, it does
in
look
the
scary.
maw.
I am
And
scared,
make sure
actually.
your ends are
Yeah,
not being part of it.
Yeah, let's see where that ends up.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm going to make the crunching sound.
Okay, uh-oh.
There's
This
the first
feels
part.
this feels wrong, but it's right.
I'm going to put my hand up here.
Okay.
I'm still right up that middle.
All right. The cutting is happening.
I'm almost there. Look, 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 look.
I'm going so slow. Well, I have tiny scissors too, but
I could give you these scissors
no,
back.
that's okay. That's all right.
Jen brought me these scissors because I wanted to do all carry-on when I flew here,
Yes.
and I couldn't have
Yes, I
scissors that big.
drove. Okay,
I'm going
thank
to give you
you.
those.
All right, I'm almost
But look.
done. Oh boy.
It's open. Nobody died.
Okay, I did it. I cut my knitting. It finally happened. The day came. I survived.
May I borrow your knitting and put that here too?
Yes. All right.
I'm going to turn it this way
Whew,
so
I
you
feel a
can.
little sweaty after that one.
So there it is.
Looks good.
Is it done? No, because you can't just leave it.
Yes,
hanging out there.
yeah.
It doesn't look very done. So what are we going to do next? We are going to pick up stitches and knit some edges that
Okay.
will match our edges up here.
Okay, great.
And I am going to hand you yours back.
Okay.
So we're going to go back to knitting.
All right.
And let me look at my instructions, because I wouldn't want to contradict myself and tell you something that wasn't what I said.
Right,
It's like,
exactly.
That's not what she said in the pattern.
Yeah.
Oh, it says voila, everything holds. Repeat for the other steek.
Yeah.
We'll do that part.
Yeah,
later.
we'll do that part later. We'll do that tonight. I'm
So,
going home with finished coasters for sure.
all
Okay.
right.
Great.
You're going to take your, did I call it main color or dark color? Anyway, main color. You're going
Main
to take
color.
your main color yarn.
Okay.
And go ahead and turn your coaster so that we're going to be picking up in that very first or last, this is actually stitch number 6,
Okay.
column of the steek. We're going to pick up in half of the stitch, the half that's closest to us. So pretty much we're hiding everything that
Where we're like-
belongs to the steek.
So we're like pushing basically the steek and that extra little steek stitches, we're pushing those basically to the wrong side
Yes.
of the work. Okay, got it.
And I would be using my main color, but I was packing up yesterday and I thought, oh, I'm done with that part, so I can put this away. And so I'm going to show you with this color
Okay.
instead. Hey, if you want to have contrasting color edges, you
Yes.
can. You can do whatever you want. It's your knitting. You're the boss of it.
That's right.
Okay.
Plus, it actually might be easier for everyone to see what you're doing because you
Yes.
are using a different color anyway. Okay, so
And also, this is superwash wool, because that's what I was demonstrating with for just showing how to do color work. This wool needs to be woolly and sticky.
sticky.
But for the edging, it's not going to matter, except for, it'd be nice if the color matched.
Yeah.
'cause I'm into the matchy.
Yeah, you like the matchy.
Okay, so
So we're gonna pick up and knit, you said, right?
yes, so I'm
Okay.
identifying right here that it's in this dark column. And I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here. And pick up a knit. So I've gone in and I bring a stitch up. I don't do anything particularly special. When I add color, I just start knitting with it and then we go on. And I've given you a number to pick up. It's how many did I say? 23, but it doesn't really matter. All you want to do is pick up so that it's not so little that things pull in, and it's
Gotcha.
not so much that it flares out. So I usually pick up 2 out of every 3 stitches.
2 out of every 3, I'll do that.
So I'm going to pick up 1.
Okay. Actually, while you're doing that, let's see, we have, I think, a few little comments
Okay.
here. Noreen says this would be an awesome technique for washcloths. Do you think you could do this with a cotton yarn for
No.
washcloths? Do you think
No,
it would?
I wouldn't.
You don't suggest that?
No, because cotton is slipperier and it's going to want to come apart.
It's going to want to come out. But if you were making some washing thing that you were going to use wool for, so you really, it's for you, it's very important that you're using that sticky yarn, we kind of call it, where it's got a little fuzz to it,
Yeah.
so it's not coming unraveled. Okay.
I mean, technically you could, but there's only one way to find out.
yes, that's true,
And I
Noreen.
think you try it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And if by sewing down that facing everything is secure, go for it.
Yeah. It's just that when you're using a more slippery yarn, it's just you're increasing the chances that something's gonna slide out and you're gonna lose a stitch or something
Yes.
like that's gonna happen, okay. But yeah, I do think you could make some very cool looking washcloths using this technique, but yeah, it's just the yarn, it might not be the best yarn for this project, but again, like we were saying, you're the boss of your knitting, so it would be cool to try it. And if you do, let us know.
Yes.
Post it on our on the Knitting Circle website. We have a project gallery, Noreen. So if you do go ahead and give this a try, be sure to post it over there so we can all see it.
And then you say, look what I did, and it was okay, nobody died.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's my other thing I tell my classes. It's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. No one dies if you make a mistake.
Right.
The cutting is a little more, you can't go backwards, but for most knitting, you can tear it out and do it over
Right.
again, and it's fine. And
Yeah.
that just means, as I like to tell my husband, I get to enjoy the yarn again.
That's such a nice way of putting it. If you do make a mistake, you just get to enjoy the yarn again. I like that.
Yes.
Yes, great.
All right, I've picked up 2 stitches, and now I'm going to skip one, and then I'm going to pick up, I have to look to make sure which one I'm skipping. Okay, there's my skip, and then I'm going to pick up 2 more. 1,
Great.
2, I'm going to skip 1, going to pick up 2 more.
We do have another crocheter also named Michelle, and Michelle is also enjoying watching this. So
Does Michelle spell her Michelle with 1 L or 2?
she's Michelle with 2 L's. This is Michelle with 1 L. So yes, she's
Michelle with 1 L, I'm too short for 2.
Yes, that's right.
This is how I get people to remember how to spell my name. Does it work always? No.
Yeah.
But I try.
Let's see. Kathy says, "Thanks for showing us the scary cutting part."
Wasn't that fun?
That was okay. It was fun. I'm here to tell you, because it's truly. I have never done it before, and now I feel like I'm going to probably be seeing some more steeking from me. That's for sure. And yes, again, just to remind everybody, it is the Boxed Hearts coaster pattern, and we've put a link again in the chat box. So if you haven't downloaded it already, you can go ahead and click that link and download it, so then you can make this pattern for yourself.
I'm pretty impressed that you can say all that and be picking up your stitches and counting 2, skip 1, 2, skip 1.
There's no promises that I'm doing
Okay.
it exactly right. Let's see. We do have one more comment here. Robin says, I was going to do a steek, but I used a superwash yarn and was afraid it wouldn't work, so they frogged the project."
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes you just try things and see what happens.
Yeah.
So it might not have been terrible. It might have been, but it might not have been. It's hard to tell, right?
Yeah, I think just if you're going to use a more slippery yarn, you just need to make sure that you're really taking the time to make sure like you're really picking up every stitch when you're doing that crocheted steek. Because again, like with this, I feel like, and I don't know because this was my first time steeking something.
But she's feeling pretty sassy now.
Now I'm feeling sassy, like I can steek anything.
cut it.
So if you were working on this and you were putting in your crocheted steek and you, I don't know, you somehow like missed one of the stitches or something.
It's gonna be fine.
It will be fine because we're using that like stickier, woollier yarn.
Even if you didn't, I think
It would be
still
okay.
be fine.
Yeah.
Because there's so much around it that's providing structure
Yeah.
for it. If you missed one stitch, it's not going to be the end of the world. When I had a steeking class early on, taught a steeking class early on, one of the knitters didn't quite read the part about non-superwash. Please make sure you use the really woolly stuff. And there was rayon in hers. And she was a loose knitter. And I'm not calling out any names, but it was pretty loose, and we cut, and it was holding, but it's like, please pick up the edge stitches now so we can turn that back, because I would feel so much better, and it was fine.
So that's the main thing. It's more that you need to use that woolly yarn, because really after you've cut that steek, there is the possibility of things coming unraveled and unraveling sort of into the project,
But
right?
it probably wouldn't, you
Probably
know how
not.
knitting, when you drop a stitch, it wants to run down,
Yeah.
and it's really easy to run down. When you have an edge like this, it would be a lot of work for it to unravel sideways.
Yeah.
But still,
Right.
I like my,
You like your woolly yarn.
Yeah.
So really, once we've picked up like these stitches on the side to work these little side borders, really at that point your side is secure.
yes, because look where the cut is. It's way back over here.
Yeah, it's way back here.
I've picked up in the very last steek stitch.
Okay.
And this, it's not that bulky. The thing that's bulky is the actual, the knitting being a facing and flipped over.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
And when you're knitting fingering weight sweaters, it's not going to be as bulky as
Right,
this.
yes.
Again, I like to teach with big fat yarn.
Yeah, that's, it makes it easier for everybody to see at home too,
Yes.
or in your class when you're teaching in person.
Okay, so now I'm flipping over. Whoop. Flipped too soon. We are going to knit 3 rows and then bind off on the following right side row.
Okay.
And if you'd like, we could do that together.
Sure.
Okay.
So yes, you said in the pattern exactly how many to pick up, but it's not, like with a coaster, it's not super critical. It's more that your edge is not
Flaring
flaring
or,
or
not
too
pulling in.
lumpy or
Yeah.
something like that. Okay, gotcha.
And I didn't even count my stitches other than 2 out of 3,
yeah,
2
I
out of
didn't
3.
either.
I don't think I have an odd number because I ended with a 2, not a 1.
And then we're just, you said
So it doesn't
knitting
really
3.
matter. So knit 3.
Okay, yep. So
rows.
far we don't have, looks like we don't have any more
I-
more comments, but we
I
hope
think
that
they
you're-
may have all passed out when we did the cutting.
I know it does seem so unnatural to cut your knitting, and especially I think of, all those people that, and again, one day I'm going to be that person because someday I'm going to finish this sweater I'm working on, that knitting a sweater is a lot of hours of knitting. I mean,
Yes.
a lot. And so, yeah, it is very scary to think about, oh, I'm just going to knit this and then I'm just going to take a pair of scissors to it, but it'll be okay. For things like sweaters, I guess people, like with cardigans, most likely you're doing a button band, but I
Yes.
guess you wouldn't necessarily, like you still would need to pick up and do something, but you don't
Yes.
necessarily have to put buttons on. People could put in zippers or
Yes.
even do you could pick up the stitches and then do like a little I-cord little thing, I feel like.
You could do anything
You
you
could
want.
really do anything you
Again,
want. It's your project.
So I have done coasters where you pick up 1 row, the stitches, and then you just bind off because it just makes this little tiny edge and
Oh.
it just finishes the edge.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do. Oh, I feel like my creative juices are flowing now. Let's see.
I've created a monster. I
Yeah,
love
you
it.
might have created a steeking monster. I don't know. Let's see. Kathy, this is an interesting question. Kathy asks, could you put high temp stuffing in and make it an oven mitt instead of 2 coasters? Oh, well, I've actually, I had sewn like an oven mitt recently. Like, I feel like you probably could.
Yes, but are we talking like?
I guess maybe
this
you're
whole
not gonna
thing?
oh
Then
yeah.
you wouldn't need a steek. You
Yeah,
wouldn't
maybe
need
you
to
would just
cut it open.
Yeah, I guess you could knit this and not do the steeking part and turn it into some sort of hot pad or something like that. And if you were going to do that, if you're taking your knitting and you're trying to turn it into like an oven mitt or a hot pad or something like that, you do need to be careful about the yarn content, because
Yes.
if you're using something like an acrylic yarn, acrylic will melt
And stick to your skin.
and stick to you. So
that's not a good idea.
yeah, so you just want to be really careful if you're trying to then turn your knitting into something like that. I mean, you absolutely can do it. Or I always think of the episode of like The Office where Phyllis knit an oven mitt for like the Christmas exchange. I mean, so you certainly can. And I would recommend, getting something that's sort of temperature safe and oven safe and make sure that your yarn isn't gonna melt or anything like that.
Wool has good insulating properties.
Yeah, it does, yeah. So yeah, I would definitely do it with a stickier, like 100% wool like we're doing here for
You
sure.
know, if you were really going to make an oven mitt, I think I would felt it.
I might felt it too if I was gonna do an oven mitt,
Because you want
I think.
that thickness.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel that heat.
Yeah, no,
I've knit my 3 rows, so now I've got 2 garter ridges on the front, just like I have 2 garter ridges along all these other edges. And I'm going to bind off in this color that I'm probably going to rip out later.
Yes, so you can finish it in the same color.
Okay.
We do have. Oh, we're starting to get some questions here.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, so somebody asked Susan, I understand that this is a steeking tutorial, but why couldn't you just knit 2 coasters and not having the extra work of doing the steeking in the middle? So maybe talk a little bit about like why for this particular pattern the steeking is the maybe better or almost easier way to go.
So if you're knitting stranded color work, and you're knitting in the round, this is how we like to do stranded color work. The right side of your work is always facing you. So it's really easy to track what you're knitting. If you had to knit this flat and you had to purl back, it's harder to see what you're doing. And if I'm just showing you the back of my coaster, that doesn't look like very much fun. And it's all purling on the back
Yeah.
too. So that is why we would do that.
Yeah, so for this particular project, it's more that it's easier to just knit every stitch and work in the round versus if you're going to do color work, you can do it in like flat and purl back on the wrong side. It's just a little bit of a pain to see what you're doing. So that's, yeah, you absolutely could do that though. Let's see, what else do we have here?
And also, how often do you get a chance to cut your knitting?
Right, I mean, that's true. Now it turns out it's fun to cut your knitting. Kathy says, oh yes, cotton and wool only for the oven mitts. Somebody is asking, and I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know if you do too, if you know the answer. Do you know where the word steek came from or where the method originated? I actually don't know the answer to that one. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
I don't want to speak definitively because that would be, me making stuff up, but I think it's Scandinavian, Norwegian, Icelandic.
Okay, gotcha.
But I don't know for sure.
You don't know for sure, yeah. So I think we're all going to be doing a little Googling after this. Yes. Oh, and Kathy says that she loves the pattern. So thank you so much. That's so awesome.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, this is so cute. And you said we were binding off on the right side, correct?
Yes.
Is there any particular bind off that we need to do, or is it just like a regular
It's
old
just a regular bind off.
Plain old bind off?
So
okay, great.
if you find that your bind off is tight, this is my favorite slightly looser bind off.
Okay,
I
yeah.
haven't been using it, but I'm just going to show you anyway. So you go in to make your second stitch as normal, but you don't drop it off the left needle. So see, I've got this whole thing here. Then I'd go ahead and do the binding off part, and then I drop it off my left needle. And that just puts a little more yarn into your stitch. So there it is again. I didn't drop it off my left needle yet. Pull that one over, then I can drop the whole thing off the left needle. So if you find that your bind off is pulling in along the top edge, just go ahead and add that little extra step of not dropping it, and drop it after you finish binding off that stitch.
Cool. I also feel like now if you have the crochet hook out and you can do the single crochet, I think even when you're done with this coaster, it might be fun almost to take that contrast in color and even do like a single crochet sort of border around it.
She's getting wild.
Uh-oh, getting crazy over here.
I love it.
Yeah, this is really, really fun. I'm really glad that we decided that we were going to do this live and that you were going to make me cut my knitting live for everybody here on Facebook. So we're getting just about to the end of our time. I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. Do you have any sort of final thoughts for
before we
people?
have final thoughts, we need to talk about what's going to happen on the back.
Oh, yes, please. Let's talk about that, please.
So I have my lovely edge, and now I'm looking at the back. I am going to use this tail, and you could leave a longer tail at the other end too when you start your knitting, but I'm going to use this tail to sew my facing down.
Oh, I guess, yeah, because this would be it's like a little floppy over here.
Because right now we've got that raw edge with these little bits of yarn hanging out in there.
Yeah.
I would like for those to be hidden away.
Okay.
This is the part that makes you feel secure.
And so are you just using the tail from what you just bound off? Basically,
Yes.
you would just leave a long tail and then
Yes.
come down and just, are you just whip stitching it then?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
So the trickiest part is at the edge, you know, there might be a little burble that you want to kind of tuck under. And so you just, any way you want to do it is fine. But I'm going to bring that down, and then I'm going to start making things stay down.
Okay, great. Let's see. We got a few little comments. Mary says that was a very good bind off tip, so she
All
says
right,
thank
excellent.
you.
That's what I love about knitting classes, when you can be with people. It's all the little extra hints that you get.
Yes, absolutely.
Besides the thing that, you know, I went to YouTube and I found how to do it.
Yeah. And then let's see. Robin says do crab stitch border. So that's a crochet thing. It's like a reverse single crochet
Yes.
thing. Yeah, that would look really. I might be doing that tonight.
So the little extra tails, I'm just going to let them be where they are. I don't really
Okay.
care, because this is very cool. You can hide all of those inside your facing.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have to go into every stitch when you're sewing down your facing. So I'll skip several, just find some place that looks like, oh, you know what, I'm going to take it right here. And then I might go as far as like
Okay.
1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and pick up the next one. So just find yourself a likely loop on the back of your knitting,
Okay.
and then go ahead and find a likely place on the other part. But see how far apart those are?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. And then when you get to finish that, here is the pink tail, and I'm just going to, it's pretty short, so I might have to fake my way. But I'm just going to take my big needle and run it in between the space.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
not showing the front, not showing the back, and just pull that through there, and then I can clip that off, and it's hidden inside.
Oh, that's great. Well, do you have any final steeking thoughts for us before we go?
I don't think so. I think you have all the tools you need.
Yep.
And you can watch the video later.
Yep.
And I think you're excited about it. So
I
my
am-
work here is done, right?
I was actually very nervous about doing this.
She said, oh yeah, let's do this. Should we do this?
Yeah, I know, it really was. I was like, this is a great idea. Oh no, this is a terrible idea. But this was really fun, and I can't wait to try it again on other projects.
I would like you to post your finished project.
Okay, I will.
And I'll post mine.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for watching us today. This was so much fun. Like I said at the beginning, we had never done any kind of live like this for knitting before, so this was super fun. I think we're going to have to find some other things I don't know how to do in knitting, and you're going to have to show me. So if you haven't already downloaded the boxed heart coaster pattern that Michelle wrote for this live, be sure to go ahead and do that, and don't forget that you can always come back and watch our video later. So, if you forget any of the little techniques that we've done here today, you can always come back and rewatch it. So, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This has
Yes.
been very
Yeah,
fun.
It's been great, and thank you everybody at home for watching, and happy knitting.
Go forth and steek.